live a meaningful life, using design thinking to unlock purpose, joy, and flow every day by Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. I don't have a copy of the book. I have it on Kindle, and if anybody wants more information afterwards, let me know. So in this book, let me just set this up, this quote. Bill Burnett and Dave Evans take a shot at Maslow's theory of human motivation, which I think many of you are familiar with. The idea is that once we get past finding food and shelter, our basic needs, then we, as humans, we want to work on community and love and respect. And then the apex of our motivation is when we become self-actualized. We become this uber-human who has this great purpose. We know what we need to do. Things just happen to us, and we make good decisions, and we have this great impact on the world. And it is, per Maslow, that is it. When you get to that point, you don't worry about competition or success. You are it. Well, these authors have a problem with that theory, and we're going to expound upon that. Burnett and Evans state, simply put, we think this definition of self-actualization is wrong because it's unattainable and unhuman. The problem here is that this lofty aspiration of a fulfilled life, where all of you gets expressed and positively valued in the world, depends on three things that we think are false and based upon some fundamentally dysfunctional beliefs. First, the false idea is that there's only one of you in there. And that one you, secondly, can be optimized around self-actualization and thereby fulfilled. And three, under this theory, your value is tied up in how others view your contribution, a valuation over which you have limited control. This is a far too narrow view of who you truly are, and letting others define your worth is always a recipe for failure.
The scripture lesson this morning is Matthew 6, verses 26 through 34. Look at the birds in the sky. They don't sow or reap. They gather nothing into barns, yet our God in heaven feeds them. Aren't you more important than they? Which of you, by worrying, can add a moment to your lifespan? And why?
Can you read a little louder, please? Thank you.
Is this better?
Now, is that better?
No,
Right.
a little bit before.
Somebody knows where the switch is. I'll start over. Okay. Look at the birds in the sky. They don't sow or reap. They gather nothing into barns, yet our God in heaven feeds them. Aren't you more important than they? Which of you, by worrying, can add a moment to your lifespan? And why be anxious about clothing? Learn a lesson from the way the wildflowers grow. They don't work, they don't spin. Yet, I tell you, not even Solomon in the full splendor was arrayed like one of these. If God can clothe in such splendor the grasses of the field, which bloom today and are thrown on the fire tomorrow, won't God do so much more for you, you who have so little faith? Stop worrying, then, over questions such as, what are we to eat? Or what are we to drink? Or what are we to wear? Those without faith are always running after these things. God knows everything you need. Seek first God's reign and God's justice, and all these things will be given to you besides. Enough of worrying about tomorrow. Let tomorrow take care of itself. Today has troubles enough of its own.
So thank you for this opportunity. I've never done this before, so I think Sandy clued me in. The first time you do it, you can't really screw it out. So this is not going to be your traditional sermon or message, but it is about me and my evolution, and that's why I started with Maslow's theory. My name is Clarice Zellmer, for those of you who don't know me, there's some new faces here, and I came to Sacred Journeys late in life. I didn't go to church much when I was a kid, maybe really early on, but anyway, found my way here, and again, thank you for this opportunity to be able to stand up here and talk to you about this a little bit, because nothing I've done before. So, I'm a child of divorce. My parents separated. I was about 11 or 12, and even before that, they were both working. And so, if we look at this Maslow's hierarchy, I didn't really have to worry a lot about the food and shelter, thank goodness. But when you got up into the community and the family and self-esteem and love, those things were kind of, they weren't. Let's just say. I didn't feel like I was part of a family system. I kind of had to figure it out on my own. My brother and sister also. So we set off upon life figuring it out on our own. If we wanted something, we were going to figure out how to get it. And in fact, you may be surprised to know when I became a teenager, this was a problem because I'd already figured out I was smarter than all the teachers and my mom. And my mom had moved with us to Madison, so there was lots of opportunity to learn about how adults do things. And I was basically almost an adult, so why not? And I remember very much coming to the conclusion when I was about 15 years old that it wasn't working. And I flunked out of quite a few courses in freshman high school. Sophomore year wasn't starting off real good. I was in the principal's office for passing notes, and those notes had some adult content in them. And I don't know if it was right there in the office or if it was a little bit after that, but I figured out this was not working, and I was going to stop fighting my mom, fighting my teachers. I wasn't actually dumb. I was doing okay in some classes, and ended up just, I'll get my driver's license soon, I'll get a job, I'll get a well do, whatever. College wasn't a thought for me, although my dad had gone to college, but he was first generation and he did it on a GI Bill. We didn't have money, so, but fortunately, I remember making that decision. So the only reason I tell you that is, well, one, for its entertainment value, and two, because I learned at an early age, you go out and figure this out, and you make it happen. Yes, I had support of my family that I admit later on, and I felt more as I got to be an adult and as I had children. But I really kind of evolved to get out there and go. And when I hit my career, I did finally make it through engineering school, got an engineering degree, went to work for a utility. Man, now I'm in it. I'm going to make lots of money. I'm going to be a vice president someday. I'm going to learn how to do this. And I obviously had some skill in managing problems on a technical level and with teams, and there I was on my way. Well, electric utility industry went through a lot of change starting about the time I graduated college. They were being reformed and sold, and transmission lines going this way and power plants going that way. And anyway, I had to hop around a lot, and I learned how to hop into the new team, figure out what was going on, apply myself, work through the problems, success, right? And managed to get promotions, managed to not get fired. I mean, really, I lots of people that I graduated with were getting laid off or downsized or whatever you wanted to call it in the 90s. And by the time I retired in 2024, I felt pretty darn good that I had survived, and I had done really well. I was in middle management, was making enough money, because there's no way I would have retired if I didn't have financial stability, if I didn't have my mortgage paid off, you know, those things that define success. But I was kind of new to this whole, you know, community. You guys, I knew I wanted to spend time with you, but that wasn't gonna fill up my life. And my husband had retired the year before, and so I knew that all this free time and, hey, you can do whatever you want, that maybe wasn't gonna work for me. And early on, like the first 6 months, we had some plans. We had this big trip to California, and we planned that, and we did that, and we painted some rooms, and we put in some gardens, but you know, that's not a life. And I'm pretty young, I'm only 57, and what am I gonna do? And so after a lot of time and maybe some conflict, because, you know, I can't micromanage Jeff while he's doing laundry. It's not, and, you know, when you find yourself making problems so you can solve them, that's me, right? I'm a problem solver. So we did have some good talks, and I hadn't found this book that I just quoted from yet. I just found that a few weeks ago. Again, thank you for the opportunity to do this, because I found this book. But we did have some tough conversations, and we had some good ideas, and we were able to come up with some ideas. So, well, first of all, I have to say, I found a counselor. So I did find somebody to talk to, not just about my worries, but also about dreams and aspirations and goals, and started journaling. And together, Jeff, my husband, and I did some life objectives, and we found out that we both valued our health, that we value new experiences. So, you know, we joined the YMCA, that's good. I don't go there as often, but my problem-solving mind will not allow me to do the calculation on how much money I'm spending by not going. We're keeping the membership because I do occasionally go, and our bodies need that, right? And I need a reason, and I need a buddy to exercise with. Also, before I retired, and when my husband retired the year before me, I had committed to saying yes more. And when you're always evaluating the most efficient way to do things, you could find reasons not to go to those concerts, not to travel to see your friends, because it's a lot of work, it's a lot of money, and, you know, we're saving our money, and, you know, and I gotta get up in the morning. And so once he retired, I'm like, well, there's some things he wants to do, I'm just gonna say yes more often. And if you want to study on saying yes, I'm going to recommend Shonda Rhimes, the TV creator of Grey's Anatomy and Bridgerton. She wrote a book on my year of saying yes, and I highly recommend it if you want to explore that. It does come with some understanding of yourself and the things you're saying no to and why you should say yes. It does not mean you say yes to everybody, and I'll get into that in a little bit. I also I volunteered at the Wisconsin Humane Society. I needed a straightforward thing I could do that would have an impact. I love dogs. I actually don't interact directly a lot with dogs. I clean up their poop. But that's okay, because I know what I need to do. It's a very physical job. I keep active, and I go in, I spend 2-3 hours there, I'm gone, and then next week I come in again. I can change my schedule if I need to, and I know I'm having an impact. Those dogs need me there, because at the end of cleaning up their kennel, I get to feed and water them, and they get another good day, and also a kind person to talking to them. Well, I talked about health, and oh, yes, Wisconsin Humane Society. Did anybody see what's coming next? We got a dog. Oh. And so I was smart enough not to fall in love with a dog, although I found a good candidate, and we had lost our dog a couple years ago. We were going to travel, so we weren't going to get another dog. But I saw this dog, and I'm like, well, you know, we need a purpose. We need something that's getting us up in the mornings, getting us up for walks, getting us outside. So we found Captain Chaos is her nickname. Her name is Phoebe, and she's a high energy dog. And
Chaos, that's good.
She is, I never worry about getting my 10,000 steps in, let's just say. And also, it changes your travel pattern, right? You don't get to get on an airplane and fly to Australia. I'll talk a little bit about that. But we can do more camping, and it's just the joy she gets. The joy she gets from just basic things, it's good for us. I've been a little more involved here, so I run the hot meal program twice a year with, of course, a lot of help from the community, because otherwise it wouldn't happen. And I stepped up, I talked about Safe Haven, I stepped up, I'm an officer on their board of directors. And then I get to visit friends more, and I get to be more involved with you guys. This is good, and I read a lot, so hence this book that I picked up. Things we avoided. Well, I talked about Australia. You know, a dream vacation is a great dream. And it's sexy and fun, but you gotta fly all that way, and it's expensive. And we just kind of backed away from that early on. We decided not to do a lot of that. We also talked about changing houses. We have we have 10 acres in a pretty big house in the country, and talked about downsizing, but I really wanted to do it so I could be more in the city and have more community, and I couldn't convince myself that I was going to find that community, and plus I had you guys, right? So I maybe didn't need to do that. Also, as a problem solver, one of the things I had to come to terms with is I was not retiring to fix my kids. My kids are 28, 29 now, and I've talked to many of you about some of their challenges in becoming adults, and I'd really love to be more involved in their lives, but I also have very clear boundaries on what I can do, and it's recognizing that it isn't something I can solve or control. This one, I really do kind of got to give that one up, because I can be guidance, I can guide them, I can help them, I can always buy them groceries, no problem. You need groceries, you can go grocery shopping. But there are things that I can't do, and I cannot, per Maslow's, I cannot set up my self-worth on their life. So that was a tough one. And then we just kind of avoided big, my husband was going to create a new company and sell electronic equipment. We didn't do that. We didn't get a new camper. We kind of keep into small hobbies. And there's a reason why you can be more fulfilled with a bunch of little hobbies. It's because, going back to that quote, there's more than one of you in there. And if you well, now I'm free of work and I'm just going to create this company and this is what I'm going to live for. You know, there's a lot of former Olympic gold medal champions that are really struggling with that one purpose that they had in life. There's a lot of rock stars and NFL players that suddenly realize that you can't have one thing as a key to happiness. You really need to mix it up a little. So, going back to that book, talk a little bit more about self-actualization, which is a flaw. There's not just one you, there's not just one purpose. Instead, we need to enter into life more with curiosity and mystery. You have to have a sense of wonder. And I heard it when we were sharing our joys today, you know, the ducks crossing the street. You know what? If you stop and take the time to watch those ducks, you're a happier person. You also have to be available. That means that you have to be able to open your eyes to opportunities that you maybe didn't think of. And Captain Chaos is one of those opportunities that we opened our life to, and we don't regret. You have to have a radical acceptance for reality. You can't tell yourself a story about how things are going to be, because that's not the way they are. And going along with that, and this is a hard one for me, is sometimes problem solving gets into blaming really fast, and I'm just trying to figure out why that happened. Can make people feel like you're blaming them, and that's a tough place to be. And particularly with my kids, or even my husband Jeff, you know, when things don't go the way we thought they would, I can get into blaming. I have to be careful with that one. I think you guys know this because we're all mature adults. Just because you make a good decision does not mean the outcome is going to be a certain way. The quality of decision does not equal the quality of outcome. You can set up the perfect experience and it can turn out to be a disaster and it's not your fault, right? So what you need to do is you need to stay engaged in life, but calmly detached, which includes not letting that outcome make it feel like a valuation of you and what you did. Go back to that California trip. I mean, that was a great start to retirement because we did take the camper, it's an old camper, and we took it across the mountains, and we had problems on the way, and there were things, I could tell you stories. How much time we got? But we had many of those, oh, what? What are we gonna do now? And we stayed together. I mean, I've known Jeff. He was around when I was in trouble in high school. He's been around for a very long time, and I don't know what part of my brain said, there's a keeper, you need to keep him, but he's gonna watch this video later, so points for that one. We, and the counselor's helping with that now too. We're going to see her together now. We're learning how to communicate and not, because we both had kind of a rough start to life, so we're trying not to let that chaos that's in here come into our communication. Anyway, so travel is an adventure, not a guarantee. One more story. Found out on that trip that a lot of national parks are requiring reservations. And we were supposed to we were just going to go from state to state and just stop for 5 days. And I kind of didn't like that. And I was like, no, let's at least plan out some of it. Well, by the time we got to Yosemite, we couldn't get in. So we rearranged our schedule a little. We did get in for a day. Well, Arches, the only time we could go in was after 3 p.m. You know what? Arches at sunset is gorgeous. So it worked out. It was a good trip. I'm still married. Nobody got on a plane to come home. And so 2 years into retirement, how's it going? Am I on permanent vacation? No, I can't do that. I have to have goals and purpose. I need to be part of something bigger. The community, I need to be part of the big whatever. And so I'll share a story, one more story. So earlier this year, we were at the western side, they call it the driftless area because the glaciers didn't hit it, and it's got some really old rocks and things like that. We were looking for what they call a goat prairie. We were going to spend the day hiking, and these are hilly meadows. And I guess apparently they call goat prairies because only goats can get up there, but we headed for one. We couldn't find it. There were no signs, there was no parking area, we couldn't find it. So we pulled over, talked about it, we said, well, let's look at the DNR site again, because these were state areas, and found another one, and we're like, all right. It wasn't even a parking lot, it was just like a little place along the side of the road with a couple of signs around. Jumped on that trail, a couple miles up where the goats live, and we came out on this vista. We were looking over the Mississippi River, and we spent quite a bit of time up there just contemplating how small humans are and how big the Mississippi River is. And then we walked down. The dog was pretty happy by that point. She'd actually gotten her like 5 miles in that day. So we wanted to just pop across the river, go to a supper club. Well, the bridge was gone. So we waited in line for a half hour for a ferry. It was a little boat crossing the Mississippi River with a bunch of cars. The dog didn't really like it, but we did it. We found this great supper club. Went a little farther south, found a bridge to come back, and by the time we got back, it was getting dark, and we just kind of settled in for the night, and then we walked outside the camper, and there's no cities around where we were camping, and the stars, and just so bright. There are diamonds up there, and it was just the most amazing experience. So I guess only about 20% of that day was planned, and I'm also proud to say, although I took some pictures, we have a habit of doing morning selfies. Not everybody gets to see the morning selfies, they're all on my phone. I didn't post any of that to Facebook because it's never gonna do it justice, you kinda had to be there. But enough about trying to prove to other people you had a good time. And enough about, worrying about tomorrow, as Matthew says. Today has troubles enough of its own. It's easy to suck the joy out of today by worrying about tomorrow. So I do need a plan. I do need to feel like I'm connected to something bigger, but I also need to relax and go with the flow. And that's me. And I will end with one. Hi Jerry, you didn't know I was going to call you out today, but I'm going to end with something that I picked up when I visited Jerry's art area a year and a half ago. I picked up this little, it was a photograph of something that he had done. And it says, take sips of this pure wine being poured. Don't mind that you've been given a dirty cup. So life is a pure wine. Don't worry about that. So thank you for this opportunity, and we'll get back to your regularly scheduled program now.